from Trending WWW. Today we will be speaking with Kevin D. Miller, author of Heart of Steel. Based on an incredible true story set in 1920s rural Ohio, it's a murder mystery and an Amazon #1 bestseller. I looked through some of the interviews you did. What an interesting book.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. It was it's quite a story, Paul. I mean, it was actually quite a shock to find out. You know, we were kind of stunned to learn that our name really wasn't Miller all these years that we've used. Even my father, who's 87 years old, I mean, he went almost his whole life not knowing that his name wasn't Miller. It's actually Puchalski.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you did a lot of research before you did this book.
Yeah, it took me like about 3 years of research to kind of figure it all out, because my grandfather had taken this secret to the grave with him. I mean, he was very tight-lipped. His siblings were very tight-lipped about, you know, this tragedy that happened back in 1920 when he was about 12, almost 13 years old. And none of us ever knew, because he took this thing to his grave. And then once we learned, we found some old newspaper articles from 1920. Somebody was doing some genealogy research and came across it and sent it to us as some cousins and said, you might want to read this because your name isn't really Miller, you know. And we're like, what? And so we start reading the articles and we're like, oh my gosh. And the articles just kind of they chronicle the events of about a week or two, you know, with my grandmother and with the murder of my great grandfather, basically. And it takes a lot of twists and turns and some spins, and it took some research to figure out why my grandfather took this to his grave, and you know what his reasons were, and why he felt he needed to protect his family and the family name and stuff.
You did 3 years of research on this. That's amazing.
Yeah, it took me 3 years to write the book, and in the process, I was doing the research as I was writing. So yeah, the first one took me quite a while. This last book I just wrote took me about 3 or 4 months because I was in lockdown.
Okay.
And I had nothing else to do but write. So
Everyone's been productive the last 3 months.
Yeah, I've been very productive in front of my computer.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
So how did this get to be an Amazon bestseller?
It took off. I mean, the word got out. Like it started picking up a lot of media, I think, Paul. I mean, a lot of national talk radio picked up on it. I had a good PR guy, and I interviewed a lot, in Cincinnati, in California. I actually got on the morning show in San Diego, Channel 8 CBS in San Diego, and I got to talk about it on that show. So a lot of the media, I think, really brought some attention to it, and then folks just started logging in there and buying. And of course, the algorithm in Amazon, when people start buying like crazy, it jumps up in different categories. So one of the categories that jumped up to #1, and some of the other categories like history, Ohio history, that sort of thing, you got in the top 10 on that. So it's pretty popular there, and it goes up and down. It just depends. And, if people are buying books, your rankings obviously go up, and, if they're giving you reviews and such. So it's done pretty well. I was really kind of surprised, and people have really embraced the story. It gets a lot of good reviews, and I hear a lot of feedback, and get a lot of messages, emails from folks who've read it and asked me questions, afterwards. They were just like really affected by the story. It's an emotional story. I mean, I have some buddies, they're kind of macho, and I'm like, here, I'm gonna, let you read my book here, but you're gonna cry, dude. You're gonna cry. And they're like, ah. And then they call me back. They're like, oh man, you made me cry. All right. It was pretty tough, but it's got a little bit of everything, for your readers. It's got it's a murder mystery. It's got a lot going on with orphanages in the 1920s, and the last part of it's really a love story, so it's got something for everybody,
Oh, wow. Okay. And that's why it's going to make such an interesting movie when it gets finished, is because it's got all the different.
Yeah. It's got some good elements for a movie. I mean, and the way I wrote it, I mean, it's a memoir biography, but it's written like a novel. It's not written kind of like a boring biography. It's fast paced. It's cinematic. You are there, you know, and living this story through my grandfather's eyes. I mean, you know, as a reader, you're reading it as him, you know, so you kind of experience a lot of these emotions and stuff. And that's kind of why, you know, it gets to folks sometimes, because it starts off, I mean, the first part of it is, I mean, right off the bat, you know, Stanley's 12 years old and he wakes up in the morning and his mom's bound and gagged and he's trying to figure out what's going on here. And she's crying and she's saying, you know, she sends him to get the sheriff because it's like somebody, you know, 3 men broke in our house last night, murdered your father. And he runs to get the sheriff and the sheriff come back and the investigation starts and begins. And this thing starts taking different turns and it's like, okay, well, what's really going on here? You know, we don't know, but you know, just a little bit. I don't want to reveal too much because I want you to read the book, but you know, I mean, you know, it turns out my great grandfather was kind of a local farmer. He was a rich farmer in a little township called Southington near Warren, Ohio. And he was he drank, he liked his whiskey, you know, and he was abusive. You know, there was some domestic violence and domestic abuse, you know, going on there. And I guess, you know, my great grandmother suffered at his hands with a lot of beatings where she actually lost, you know, several children, pregnancies to his cruelty. And so there's a lot going on there, you know, that they're dealing with. And the story progresses and things happen and go on. And as things happens, my grandfather Stanley and his siblings find themselves eventually in an orphanage in 1920 in a terrible place. And they decide they want to escape, you know, they want to get out of there. So then then you'll find out whether they're successful at escaping that place and what they do from there. And then the last part of the story really is my grandfather meeting my Irish grandma, who was a feisty lady, and it's their love story. And it's a really good story there. My wife was my critique partner, and she reads so many books, but she says, I love this story. She goes, but I really loved it when I got to the love story because that's kind of her thing there.
How did you get this to the people that would be making this film? Did you find them or did they find you?
Well, I have the benefit, Paul, of actually being in Hollywood right now. My 2 young daughters, they were 6 and 11 when they were invited by an agency for acting in Hollywood.
Oh, that's incredible.
So, yeah, we came out here to try to support their career. It's like, you guys want to do this? And they've done some good stuff. They've done national commercials and TV, Lifetime movies, different things. And they're 18 and going to be 14 right now. So we made a lot of contacts. I mean, I have a lot of, you know, acting coaches, and you start to kind of network and learn people. And a really good friend who is the girls' acting coach actually owns a production company. And when I gave him the book to read, he kind of took it like, I'll read my buddy's book here, you know, but after he read it, he calls me up and he's like, dude, he goes, I'm going to option this book and we need to make this movie, you know? And I'm like, yes, okay. Cause that's kind of why I gave it to you. I was hoping you'd call me and say that, you know? So now we've got it going. We have it in the hands of a really good screenwriter, Ty DeMartino. He's done a lot of stuff and he's just a great guy, and he's putting the screenplay together, and the first version should be ready in about a few weeks. I think he's saying he's making good progress. And once we have that screenplay set, we'll take the screenplay and the book, and then we start pitching it to investors to get the investments to, you know, to get it in production. Greenlight, they call it, greenlight the project. And then I've got 2 wonderful actor daughters that,
okay,
I got perfect roles for you girls if you want them, you know.
They know the story already.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
wow.
yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, you really turned that into a real career-making situation.
Yeah. It's really exciting because I'm excited for my daughters to play roles of their relatives. You know, that's a kind of a cool thing. I mean, my daughter Gracie's just the right age to play her great aunt. Great aunt Sophia, who's the older sister of Stanley, and has a significant role. And then my 18-year-old be perfect for my grandma Emma May. So the right age and everything. And like I said, it's not just that they're my daughters, let's get them in the movie. They're actually really talented actors, and so I'm thrilled, you know, that they agreed to be a part of it.
And it sounds like you have the second book you're working on isn't quite finished yet.
It right now it is finished, Paul. It's in it's gone through editing. I've
Okay.
got an editor that's going to give it one more run through, and I've actually submitted the first 3 chapters to a small publisher, Headline Publishing Inc.
Okay.
They're like very cool publishing company who I met through mutual friends and stuff. I think they were the Indie Publisher of the Year in 2018. So they're considering it and looking at it, and I'm waiting to hear back from them. If they, I'm hoping they give me a call and say, let me see the rest of the manuscript, because then I know they're interested in publishing it. And if they decide to turn it down or decline, they, pass on it, then I'll probably self-publish this one again, and then just market it and push it out there.
Okay.
So,
do the marketing yourself, possibly.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I have a PR guy. I have a really, really good PR guy. His name's Burke Allen of Allen Media Strategies. He's out of DC, and they're just amazing there.
Okay.
How they can, push stuff out there and get some attention drawn to the story. So, but this second book is called White Skies, Black Mingo. It's this one's going to be strictly historical fiction, but it's inspired by my great-great-grandparents. My great-great-grandmother was what they call Mingo. She was Native American, Ohio Seneca of the Haudenosaunee Nation, which is more commonly known as the Iroquois. The Haudenosaunee don't really like the name Iroquois, as it was an English. It's actually a French word that the English used to refer to the nation, but their real name is Haudenosaunee, which means the people of the Longhouse. And my great-great-grandfather was Irish, so we got a mixed marriage back in the Civil War time that makes for some interesting storytelling.
Okay, sure. One of the things you mentioned in the notes too is that said you might even tell people how they can make good progress with their own stories, which I thought was an interesting idea.
Yeah, you know what? I encourage people to do that. I mean, one of the things, I used Ancestry and 23andMe quite a bit for research, and like I said, I kind of already knew what my story was going into it. So, and I'm good with it. I'm good with learning the truth, no matter how painful it is. Some people might be hesitant to do this, and because you might be afraid what you might come across,
Okay.
or who it might affect, so
Yeah.
be careful going in. That would be my advice. Just make sure you're ready to find stuff out that you might not want to have known, but anyway, it helps with your story if you're doing a biography or a memoir or some historical stuff. But yeah, what I recommend, because I've had a question a lot. It's like, everyone has a story. I'm sure, Paul, you have a story. I'm sure there's stuff in your family that you could write a amazing book about,
Yeah.
maybe even turn it into a movie.
Yeah.
But so what I would recommend, if you're going to write your book, first thing is to learn how to write. I spent a lot of time learning how to write. I've been a professional web developer for a long time and a technical writer. That didn't translate because I had to really learn how to write a novel, So I took classes. I spent a lot of time on YouTube, just listening to authors, reputable authors, taking some master classes. So learn how to write. And you don't have to wait, because you can start writing your story, just start putting it on paper and writing it down, because you're going to go back and you're going to edit that thing, 20, 30 times before you're ready for an editor, because you're going to go through and you're going to catch things and stuff. But just write the story down, just write your story, and then learn how to write, and you can get help. I mean, there's people who can help you. If you really just can't write, there's people you can hire to help you write the story. There's ghostwriters and stuff that you could find, but I think it's more enjoyable to just write the story yourself, because you're closer to it and you're, involved in it a lot more. So
It seems like okay. So there's a little bit of a struggle getting these books written, and then probably another struggle to get it published.
yeah, it's to get it. Yeah, like I said, to get it written, you just have to figure out, what am I going to write it in? I use Microsoft Word, and I just start typing, and I look up to see how to properly format a manuscript. And you can find all this stuff on the internet and on YouTube and tutorials and stuff, so that you have it properly formatted when you want to submit it to publishing companies or to an agent, that way it's, they look at it and say, okay, it's professionally formatted, so it'll get their attention. And then you need to learn how to edit it the best you can. I mean, best as an author, even Steven Spielberg and stuff, they all have editors, because they write it the best they can. They edit it to the point where it's just they can't do anymore. Then they turn it over to a professional editor, who then the editor's job is to polish that prose and make it shine, you know. And then getting it over to, then you have to decide, am I going to self-publish or am I going to traditionally publish? And so there's nothing wrong with self-publishing. It's kind of the way a lot of authors are going these days. There's a lot of published authors who choose to self-publish their books now, because you actually get a bigger royalty, you know, when you're self-publishing. Amazon's going to pay you, you're going to get about 70%, you know, as opposed to if you're traditionally published, you know, maybe 10 to 30%. The benefit with traditional publishing is distribution. You know, you're going to get into bookstores and on shelves and they kind of help you market it, and they kind of push you. So you got somebody behind you pushing the book. Whereas with self-publishing, you're really on your own. You know, you're on your own to create the book cover, you know, get your ISBN number and the copyright and all that kind of stuff there. But it's worth it. It's not really that hard to do. And there's so many resources out there to tap into to show you how to do that and teach you how to do it. And I'm available for people who have questions. And I mean, you know, you can go to my website for this book is heartofsteelbook.com. And it's got a lot more information about the book up there. And it's got my email on there. And I love hearing from people, especially, you know, people who've read the book and stuff. I love hearing their thoughts and feedback. And I answer questions, for people the best that I can. I like helping, you know, people or potential new authors, you know, make their way. So
you answer promptly too. When we've sent you things, we had answers back so quick. I was just amazed.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's probably my 8 years in the military. It's kind of an OCD thing. It's just like, you know, I have to be early. You know, if I'm on time somewhere, I'm late. You know, kind of. Well, my wife's a little more opposite than that. She's like, oh, you know, she's trying to do 50 things before we get out the door. You know, and so I'm like, let's go, come on, let's go. But she's more laid back. So we kind of balance each other. You know, she's really laid back, and she kind of, you know, tones me down a little bit, softens my edges, and I kind of, you know, pick her up a little bit. And so it works good. I mean, it works out fine and stuff. But yeah, I try to be very responsive and quick and answering folks when they're, because I think your readers want to know you. I mean, they want to know something about you. They want to feel that connection, you know, and I want to stay completely open to those kind of connections. I love talking to folks. I got a call from a lady from Cincinnati who heard me on the Reds flag station there that I had an interview on back in November, December. She's like, I heard you on the radio. I heard your book. It was interesting. I ordered it. I got it. I've got more questions, you know, for you about Stanley. You know, what happened to him after, you know, and she'll start asking all these questions. So I love it. I love, you know, sharing that stuff and giving them extra, you know, in behind the scenes information and stuff. So I'm totally open.
You've got a great website too. We have like 50 different interviews on there. I saw 40, 50.
Yeah, there's quite a few. Yeah, my PR guy was pretty busy. He got quite a great reaction from the media when he put out a press release. I mean, we got a lot of stuff back from a lot of different radio stations. I talked to Donna Fiducia, who used to be a Fox News anchor years ago. Her and her husband were interesting to talk to. They were very funny. They're a lot of fun to talk with. But but that comes with good PR folks. Mm-hmm. And then it just kind of propagates because it just kind of, you know, went wild. I was really active, you know, in the you know, November, December, you know, January area and stuff. So
I noticed that on your YouTube site you had lots of visits. On a few of the videos you had, on a lot of visits.
Yeah, I have that YouTube video embedded on my website. And again, I'm a professional web developer, so I didn't have to pay anybody to do the website. Okay. I did that myself. I actually worked for the city of Peoria. I was their web developer for 14 years up there in Peoria.
Really?
Yeah. I was I did all their web stuff. That was a great job. But I retired early. I used my military time, retired early and stuff. But yeah, I have the video embedded there. So it does, people like to, you know, I kind of made it a book trailer out of it. I'd like to make another book trailer, a more Hollywood cinematic one that kind of maybe previews the movie a little bit. But I have one up there just where I'm narrating.
Yeah, I saw two different ones, an older one and then I saw a newer one.
Yeah,
a couple. Yeah, a lot of views.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. just kind of trying to narrate it and just kind of, you know, kind of tell my story a little bit. It's like, you know, how would you feel if you woke up one day, you know, and you learned that
Yeah.
the last name you used all your life isn't your name? And why?
Yeah.
Why? My granddad was a great guy. I was very close to my grandpa. He was a good, strong man. He was more of a guy that would, you know, he'd sit here with you, Paul, and he wouldn't want to talk about himself. He would want to hear about your day and about you, and he'd be interested in you more than himself. You know, that's the kind of guy. I just appreciate. I appreciate this so much. I love talking to people. I'm glad we connected. And I was